the potential of getting a quote-unquote good quality subscriber, someone who's interested in buying, is greater than the risk of not capturing them if I don't have the pop-up.
Hey podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guy, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Hey everybody, it's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy, and it's time for episode 34 of the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast, where you'll discover how to increase your email profits by 25 to 100% in 90 days or less without spending more money on advertising. And more about that tweak to the intro in a minute. Today I'll be talking to Shayna Oliveira. Now, you'll hear more about Shayna in just a minute when I get into the interview. Basically, I met her on a forum and she had a really good thread that she posted about 11 factors that were essential to her biz growth. Her business had grown a lot in the past year or two. And a couple of the points were about email marketing. So I sent her a message and asked her if she'd do a podcast with me. And we're going to talk about how she gets 95% of her sales via email, what she uses her autoresponder for, how she does it, and some very specific things that she's doing to get a great response from her audience that you can do starting today. To get the show notes for this episode of the Email Marketing Podcast, go to dropdeadcopy.com/34. Now, you might have noticed that new intro in there. I said the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast. If you try and go to dropdeadcopy right now, you'll see that it redirects to a new domain, which is themcmethod.com. And that's part of a new focus or a new direction. It's still all going to be about email marketing. There is no more drop dead copy though. The whole focus is going to be on this McMethod. The idea of the McMethod, McIntyre method, that's just too hard to spell. That McIntyre always catches people out. So I've decided to simplify it to the McMethod. Eventually I will have McMethod as McMethod.com as a domain as well. And it's going to be exciting. So we're going to grow that. Coming into the new year, the McMethod podcast, the McMethod. There's going to be a community, an insiders community that's coming with a forum and more products. It's going to be, I'm really pumped about it. I'm really, really excited. Now, the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast has another 5-star review. This one's from Damien Elsing from Australia. Damien's a great guy. I met him in Bangkok at a conference recently. He's really cool. He says, great podcast. This no-nonsense podcast is a valuable resource for anyone who wants to get better at the very lucrative skill that is email marketing. John gets some great guests and manages to extract really useful information from each and every one of them. Highly recommended. Damien, huge shout out. Thank you so much for sending in that review. I really do appreciate the reviews. It totally makes my day and puts a smile on my face when I get feedback from people, from listeners like you. So if you're listening right now and you want to leave a review, go to iTunes or go to themcmethod.com and /podcast, and you'll find links to the podcast on iTunes where you can leave me a review and can put a big smile on my face and can have me read it out on the show. So go and do that. Now, I've got 2 listener questions before we get into this week's podcast with Shayna. Question number 1 is, how do you write so fast? So, recently I did the McMethod Mastermind, and one problem that the students, the clients, or the Mastermind members had was that writing emails took a long time. It was taking them an hour, 2 hours sometimes to write an email. And what I kept stressing to them is just keep practicing and practicing. And soon you're going to be writing emails in 15 minutes. And that's exactly what happened. By the end of it, after 4 weeks, they were writing emails in 15, 20 minutes. Not every single email, but some of them. Now, what changed? Well, they got out of their own way, and I think that's the main thing, is when you sit down to write an email, if you edit it as you go, it's going to take you forever, because you're going to write a sentence, and then go and tweak it, and then go and tweak it again. Then you're going to write a few more sentences and edit it a little bit and a little bit. What you really want to do is remove that filter from your head, which is really easy with email, right? You can just write first, write drunk, edit sober. That's the old thing. But basically just get it all out, vomit the words onto the page, and then go back and edit it. And what really helps is when you understand what you should be saying in the email. If you don't know what to write and you're sitting there staring at a blank page, with fear and dread and you're nervous and anxious, and you have no map, you have no idea what to say in the email or how to sell or what you're trying to achieve or what the goal is, of course it's going to be hard and of course it's going to take a long time. If you do want to know, keep listening to this podcast, go and sign up to the email list at dropdeadcopy.com or themcmethod.com and you'll learn more there. Now, question number 2, how do you find amazing people to interview? I'm not sure if I've answered this one before, so I'm going to answer it again. The secret is just send them emails, basically. It's really not that hard. This is something I found really amazing since starting this podcast, is that consistently, seemingly powerful or successful people or guests are actually quite easy to contact. I can find their website, I can send them an email, and especially in the marketing industry, the other people in my industry, they're all self-promoters. They love to sell themselves and they love to create value. So if I give them an opportunity to do that, to do what they want to do on my podcast, most of them just want to do it. They want to say yes. Now, of course, sometimes it takes a little bit more than that, and some people are harder than others, and you got to follow up. And the other thing is just send them an email and always follow up. I've followed up with people before for, with 5, 10, 20 times with no replies from them. I just do it once a week. One day a week, I send another email, and unless they tell me to stop, and no one's ever told me to stop, I'll just keep sending them an email because it takes me 2 minutes. 2 minutes a week. And that's pretty much how to do it. Figure out what guests you want to get, send them emails, follow up, and you will get there. And always, when you're trying to email them to get them on your podcast, make it in their best interest, right? Don't say, I need a favor, or can you really help me out, or it'd be great, my audience would really like to hear from you. Forget all of that. You want to go to them and you want to say, look, I'm going to give you a chance to communicate with an audience is perfect for what you talk about, for your products, for whatever. You're going to get press, you're going to get PR, whatever. Sell them on it. Tell them what they're going to get out of it. That's really the secret. That's the secret to email marketing. Now, this podcast really, here's the final thought. This podcast is not so much about email marketing as it is about getting people to do what you want them to do. And the only way to do that is to tell them what's in it for them. So I'll leave you with that. Let's go get into the interview with Shayna Oliveira. It's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder guy. I'm here with Shayna Oliveira. I met Shayna on an online forum for internet business people. We've been on there for a while and I've seen her been posting, but she posted something really interesting, I think it was in the last week or 2 weeks ago, about a site that she was running, and the thread was a case study, and the title was Slow and Steady Educational Info Product Biz Growth. And what was really cool about this thread was Shayna just listed, I think it was 11 factors which she felt were essential in her business growth. And there was all sorts of stuff in there, Facebook advertising and Facebook pages and some of the WordPress plugins she was using. But some of the stuff that really interested me and the reason why I wanted to get her on to do this podcast is a number of the key factors in the growth that she brought up in her thread were revolved around email. So for example, she said that 95% of her emails are from her email list. She found that a pop-up was crazy subscriber growth, and an autoresponder equals education and sales. And she found that personal replies to subscribers worked really, really well. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode, and we're going to drill down into exactly how she did these things and what Shayna felt like it did for her business. So it's going to be very interesting to talk about. So we'll get into that in a minute. How are you going today, Shayna?
Pretty good, John. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Just trying to get through my dinner.
All right. Well, I just woke up here in New York.
You're in New York. Okay, awesome. It's cold. Is it cold over there?
Yes, it is. And I'm coming from Brazil, so I'm not used to it.
Damn. Okay. You got to come over to Thailand one of these days.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Now, okay, so I've kind of given people a bit of an overview. Now we'll get into the nitty-gritty stuff in a minute. But let's start by give people a bit of a background on what's the site your site that all this stuff happened with, and give us a bit of a background. What is it? What does it do? That kind of thing. What's the big picture?
Okay, the website is espressoenglish.net, and it provides English as a second language lessons online to people who don't have a lot of time to study. So, the lessons are short, and they're usually delivered by email. And I have a blog, and I sell ebooks and courses through the site, all teaching English.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this?
Coming up on 2 years.
Okay, and so has it been like a steady growth since from when you started it, or has it been something that you've really just started to put effort into recently, or in the last 6 months or a year? Or
it's been pretty steady since the beginning. I've been publishing consistently since I started the site, and emailing consistently since I started the site. And the growth of both subscribers and sales has just gone up pretty steadily over time. There have been no enormous spikes or anything like that. But, when you take all that cumulative growth over 2 years, it adds up.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about this email. One of the first things that I found, the most interesting thing I found in your post was that 95% of your sales are from your email list. So, tell me about that. Are you letting people sign up to buy the product on the website, or do you force them to go through the email list?
I don't force them, but I highly encourage them. I have a pop-up, and a scroll box that comes in from the bottom, and as well as a feature box on my homepage. So there are multiple opportunities for someone to get on the list, although I don't force them to go through a welcome gate or something like that. But that results in about, current level, about 120 new subscribers per day. And, I've played with, taking the pop-up off, putting it back on. But at the moment, I feel like it's the best way to just get people, on the list, get them receiving some free content and getting them used to my teaching style so that they know if they do want to purchase a course, they know the way I teach and, hopefully like it enough to purchase from me.
Right, okay. So you're using the site as kind of the main goal of the site is to get people onto the email list. And then if they
Yes.
kind of skip that, they can find the product if they poke around. But it's very obvious that the next step for them to take is to sign up to the email list, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, and so what's this pop-up? Is this just a standard Aweber pop-up, or are you using a special plugin?
I'm using a plugin called Pippity.
Okay.
I think it's a one-time purchase plugin, and it has, some templates and customizable pop-ups, and of course you can do all the stuff like delay the pop-up, set it to display once every 30 days, which is what I have mine set on. And I liked the look of it, and I felt it was adequate for my needs, and it served me very well.
Okay, so you find that no pop-up versus pop-up is a huge difference in the amount of subscribers that you get.
It is huge. And for a while, I debated about the quality of subscribers because I had heard some people saying that if you remove the pop-up, you'll get maybe fewer but higher quality subscribers. And that may be the case, but honestly, I keep it up there not just to grow my subscribers faster, but because I feel that the potential of getting a quote unquote good quality subscriber, someone who's interested in buying, is greater than the risk of not capturing them if I don't have the pop-up, if that makes sense.
Right, so it's kind of like you have more to lose by not having the pop-up than by having the pop-up.
Exactly. And I do also eventually clean my list. I don't know your opinion about this, but after every 3 months or so, I take the people who haven't opened a single email from me in the past 3 months, which would have meant they had to ignore 90 emails, and I just take them off because I figure that person's obviously not a warm lead.
Right, absolutely. Okay. So one thing I think is really important there, that to jump back a little bit, is the way you've set up your site. And this could work for a lot of different people. That too often when I've been to sites before, it's very hard to figure out what the next step is. Like what are you meant to do on the website? There might be a bunch of content, some blog posts and all sorts of things like that, but it's often not very clear on what the next step is. And if there's multiple things, such as buy this product, read this page, sign up to the list, there's all these different things going on. It's very hard for someone visiting the site to know what the next step is to take. So I really like what you've done is how you've, and I've done this with one of my sites, is how you structure it where the site's obviously pointing people towards these opt-ins. So if someone is interested and wants to learn more, it's very, very simple. They don't even have to think about it. They know straight away what the next step to take is. And I'm sure that this really works well with people. It just makes it easy for them to engage with your material.
Exactly. And it's interesting. It's never as obvious to the person visiting your site as it is to the site's creator what the next step is. So if you created the site, you might think, oh, it's obvious that my prospect should do X, Y, and Z, but you got to get someone else to look at it because they might not think it's so intuitive.
Right. Okay. Now tell me, with the opt-in, what are you offering people who join your list?
I'm offering 2 free grammar ebooks. So it's 2 ebooks about English grammar, which might not sound very exciting, but for someone who normally pays for textbooks, it's a pretty good deal.
Absolutely. That's cool. So most people, would think that's boring, but you've got your avatar mapped out, so you know that these people, they really like a grammar book, even though it sounds boring.
Exactly. And if it's a grammar book that explains things in a easy and not horrendously boring way, then it'll be a pleasure to read. And a lot of people have told me that the book's been really helpful.
That's great. Okay, and then what happens after that?
After that, they get an email delivering their books, and within that email, there's also an opportunity for them to make a $1 purchase, which is the accompanying audio files for the books. And not a lot of people take advantage of that, but a few do. And that's a recent addition because I thought it might be good to at least get some people to convert from subscribers to customers right away, even if it's just a $1 purchase.
Okay. Have you been able to track the results of that, or is that just it's too recent of an addition?
It's still pretty recent. I'd say about maybe 4 or 5 people actually, take up that offer, but I haven't tracked them through to see if they then are more likely to become customers of the higher priced courses.
Okay, that's something that will come a bit later, I guess.
Sure.
Okay, so and then I know you've got a very long autoresponder sequence, which I think is great because, I mean, long in terms of compared to most people. Because the other day I was talking to someone and they seemed to think that 10 emails was a long autoresponder sequence. So tell me, I mean, how long is your autoresponder and what's your strategy there? How have you come up with everything and what's your strategy?
Well, it's 90 days, but it's an email once every 3 days. So I suppose 90 days might be long if it was daily emails, although I know some people are very successful with that. But, it's twice a week, so it's not, I don't think it's overwhelming. And the other reason it's long is because learning English or learning anything really, it's usually a pretty long-term endeavor. You're probably going to be studying for 2 or 3 or 5 years. And so to have a 3-month autoresponder in this area of language learning and education is not such a stretch. And basically the way I came up with it is I took my 30 best lessons or best blog posts really, and I found those by just, checking out my Google Analytics, seeing what the most popular, the most shared lessons were, as well as listening to subscriber feedback. And I realized that those lessons were kind of getting buried in the blog, and I took those lessons and turned them into my autoresponder. So basically, once every 3 days, the person who signs up for my list gets a free English lesson, and it's one of the best that I've published among the several hundred that are on the blog.
Okay, so how much? So you're doing a lot of education in the autoresponder. Is every email teaching people something? How do you balance? How do you make the balance between the content and the blog post versus the sales type of emails?
Well, basically, every email is both teaching and sales. So let's say I send an email about 10 English phrases to use in a job interview. So I'll have the free content, which is the lesson, and right under that, in the email itself, is basically a sales part that says, if you really want to go deeper in this area, you have a business English course, and that's the paid offering. And I always try to link, when possible, the theme of the email. If the email is about pronunciation, I put my pronunciation course at the bottom. If it's about travel English, I put my travel English course at the bottom. So it's the logical next step. Oh, after you've read the free stuff, if you want to take the next step is purchasing the related course on that topic.
Okay, and is there any sort of flow to it? Like, as in the 90 days, is that organized in a particular way, or have you just taken the best blog posts and then mixed that in for 30, so there's 30 different emails for 90 days. Have you just kind of gotten the 30 best blog posts and made that your autoresponder, or is there some sort of order that you found works best?
There's no particular order, although I do try to mix up the areas, so not to put a whole bunch of emails in a row about, say, business English. If someone's not studying English for their career, they're not going to be particularly interested. So I just try to rotate it. But in my area, I found it hard to follow. I know it's a common advice to kind of create story arcs and open loops and that sort of thing. And I haven't really quite figured out how that would be applicable to English teaching. So I just do the rotation of the topics.
Okay, and how are you structuring these emails? Are these is it a link to a blog post, or are you? Because I think you've probably seen some of the emails I send where it's just kind of like a story and then a pitch. What's your structure with your emails?
It's usually a little personal introduction that is written by me. In today's lesson you're going to learn, and I explain what they're going to learn or why they should be excited about it, or sometimes to get them intrigued. Do you know these 10 slang words about the human body? Something like that, and it's usually a link to the post on the website, because the posts often have video, so they'll need to watch it on the site. There's text under the video for those who can't watch video, and then under that there's the link, the pitch, and the link to the paid product. I try not to make my emails too long, because since one of the value propositions of my site is that you'll be able to learn English without spending a ton of time studying, I want people to know that when they open up my emails, they can take their lesson in 10 minutes, or they can read it in 2 minutes, and not have to slog through a huge long letter or a huge long lesson.
Right. Okay. So how long are they? Are you saying 200, 300 words? Or?
Oh, I've never bothered to do a word count. I kind of just estimate by the length on the screen.
Interesting. Okay. And you also mentioned in your post personal replies to subscribers. So I guess do you have questions in the email sequence that people are responding to?
Yeah, actually, the second email they get, which is on day 2 after they've signed up for the list, is it's an autoresponder, but it looks personal. It looks like it comes from me, and thanking them for signing up for the list, sending them their links to their free stuff again. And I also ask them, hey, I'd love to hear what's your biggest difficulty in learning English, and hit reply to this email, and then I'll respond with some tips for you. And I was a little nervous about putting that in there because I was afraid I was going to get just completely flooded with responses. I do get a lot of them. I do get several dozen a day, but people really appreciate my asking. And when they share their difficulty with me, I do respond to each person. And the secret is that I use a Gmail canned response because the responses do usually fall into one of, 7 or 8, common questions or common difficulties. And a lot of people then write back again saying, I never expected a response. Thank you so much, from a big company like Espresso English, which of course is just me and my computer, but nobody knows that.
The joys of the internet. Did you screenshot that email and save it to your computer?
Which the big company one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have. It's somewhere in my archives.
I love emails like that. Okay, so are you doing these quick? Because I do this as well. Like, someone sends an email and I've asked them a question and they've said something, and sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long, depending on the email and how much information they've given away. Sometimes I'll give them a long response and try and really help them out with their problems. But if they've just said something real quick, sometimes I'll just send back a smiley face. So do you have are your responses, are they, one sentence, 2 sentences, or are you sending a few paragraphs back?
I'm actually sending a few paragraphs because, when I ask what's your biggest difficulty in English, most people either say speaking, listening, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, or writing. Those are really the only 6 responses. Occasionally someone sends a response that's different and then I'll actually type out a response. But basically for those, I wrote up it's a couple paragraphs. It's maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs about my best tips about that area. And I just insert it as a canned response. So it is kind of on the long side, but on the flip side, it doesn't take me any time to actually insert that reply. And, when possible, if I can make some sort of personal connection, for example, if the person mentions they're Brazilian, I'll write at the top, oh, I also live in Brazil. I love your country, some sort of personal thing. But then I'll just insert the canned response, which of course is appropriate to what they've asked. And so it looks like I've typed out a whole long reply, but it's actually just being copied and pasted.
Okay. And then people respond really well to that.
Yeah, exactly. They say, a lot of times they'll just say, thanks so much for your tips. They were really helpful, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's really cool. So, tell me about some of the challenges over the last kind of few months or couple years trying to build this site. Did you have any challenges with email or any beliefs about emails that proved to be wrong?
Not beliefs that have proved to be wrong, but I guess the biggest challenge is, everybody says to experiment with different approaches, test everything, see what works, see what doesn't work. My problem is I don't have the patience to test it. An autoresponder is long. It's 90 days. So if I'm going to test an entire sequence, that can only be done once a quarter, essentially. And so I'm not really sure how to resolve that. I do keep changing things kind of based on my intuition, based on my gut, but I wouldn't be able to back them up and say, oh, I have solid test results that this results in more sales. So I'm really still not sure how to resolve that paradox of how to test things in your email approach and your autoresponder without having it take an enormously long time.
Everyone goes on and on about testing. This is a huge thing that everyone's talking about, but you found that it's not just because of the time it takes that you haven't done it, but that hasn't held you back either.
Exactly. Sales continue to go up, so I guess either, my intuition is good or else I'm just fortunate, but, I kind of revise based on feedback, based on trends I see. I do kind of take a look at open rates and click-through rates, and if I notice that an email is a complete bomb, I'll replace it in the autoresponder sequence. Or if I notice that one is particularly good in terms of opens or click-throughs, I'll try to analyze it and see, okay, is it the headline, is it the subject, and try to replicate that in some of the other emails.
Do you test the other stuff, like landing pages or anything like that?
Nope, that's my 2014 project.
Okay, so that's one of the things. So what's coming up? So it's all going well so far, and you have the autoresponder set up. So the next step is to start testing landing pages.
Yeah, sales pages, that type of thing. And, in the past, I didn't test them because I wasn't getting enough traffic to them. But I think I've reached the point now where I can start, doing some tests on my landing pages and figuring out what the best, messaging is for each product and that type of thing.
What else are you going to be doing, even just with the site?
Got a couple of ideas. In addition to building out new products and, adding to the catalog of courses. 2 things I really want to implement: webinars inside the autoresponder sequence and also just as a general part of the site. And, I've read that not only does a webinar increase engagement a lot. But you also have a big opportunity to email people before the webinar, reminding them of the webinar, the day of the webinar, as well as, oh, if you missed the webinar, here's the recording. And I've actually been told that a lot of sales often don't come from the webinar itself, although they do convert really well, but from those other, support emails before and after, the people who, missed it or wanted to go but couldn't or whatever, and then they watch it and they still buy the product. So I'd really like to start experimenting with webinars in the new year.
Awesome. We're right on time. So before we go, though, if you'd like to, you can tell people where they can learn more about you or maybe check out the site.
So my business site is espressoenglish.net, and then I have a personal blog at adventurous-soul.com.
Okay, and people can email you there if maybe they have a question, maybe they're learning maybe they want to know how to speak English as well.
Absolutely. I welcome emails about English, entrepreneurship, autoresponders, anything in between.
Okay. And if there's one thing, this is the final question, if there was one thing you could tell someone who's kind of in a similar place and they're trying to figure out how to monetize their website better with email marketing, what would be your number one tip? They haven't done anything yet, but they want to know where to start, or what's the biggest thing that they could focus on?
Well, the biggest thing is to just start. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, but you can grow and develop your email strategy, your autoresponder, as time goes on. When I started emailing, there were 23 people on my list for my first e-blast, but I didn't let that stop me. So I just kept going over time. The list grew, kept learning, but don't wait until you have a giant list or until your website's been on the air for 5 years before you start. Start now, as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, if you haven't done so.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice. All right, Shayna, thanks for coming on.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to discover more insider tips, tricks, and secrets about driving sales with email marketing, sign up for daily email tips from the Autoresponder guy. Go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Sign up, confirm your email address, and I'll send you daily emails on how to improve your email marketing and make more sales via email. You'll find out why open rates don't matter and the 7-letter word that underlies all effective marketing and much more. The editing and production of this podcast were provided by Authority Engine. Learn more at authorityengine.com.